Alright, Glasgow, Scotland. Damp, soggy, wet, grey, angry, a little bit bleak. All of the above, really. Once a place that induced excitement has now become a place that we can't wait to leave. I'm not sure if it's the rising cost of rent and cost of living, or whether we're just bored from being in the same place for too long, but as we prepare to leave Glasgow, it's easy to forget why the city is so memorable. Glasgow has a rich history. For over a century, Glasgow was an industrial powerhouse, its shipyards along the River Clyde producing everything from luxury liners to warships. Historians even point out that without Glasgow, the Allies may have struggled to win the Second World War. At its peak, a fifth of the world's ships were built in Glasgow, driving Britain's empire and global trade. But as industries declined, like in many cities in the late 20th century, jobs vanished, communities were left struggling, and economic stagnation set in. The effects of that decline linger today, not just in the city's economy, but in the public health and social inequality. The Glasgow effect, a term used to describe the city's unusually poor health outcomes, has its roots in this industrial collapse. Shipbuilding declined rapidly during the 1960s in Glasgow as global competition and economic shifts made Clyde-based shipbuilding less viable. Factory closures meant that thousands became unemployed essentially overnight. This had a devastating impact: poverty, high unemployment, and a loss of identity for areas built around industry for generations. Shipbuilding's decline in Glasgow meant that neighbourhoods that had thrived on shipbuilding and manufacturing were left with little but empty yards and rising unemployment. The 1980s under Thatcher only deepened the wounds. Factory closures, union crackdowns, and mass job losses sparked protests and strikes across the city. Glaswegians fought back from the Upper Clyde shipbuilders' work in the 1970s to the anti-poll tax rebellion in the 1990s. The history of struggle left a mark. There's a reason Glasgow has a reputation for defiance, for a sharp tongue, and a deep-seated scepticism of authority. So people make Glasgow. Maybe it's not just a cheesy slogan, but it's actually a reflection of a city shaped by struggle. For over a century, industry defined Glasgow, and when it collapsed, communities were left to deal with the fallout. The scars of this decline are still obvious today. Areas once built around shipyards and factories now rank among the most deprived areas in the UK, with life expectancy levels in some parts decades lower than wealthier areas just a few miles away. But Glasgow's identity has never come from wealth or status. It comes from the people, from a sense of humour that has been sharpened by hardship and a rejection of authority. Now, not to butcher the sayings of famous philosophers here, but Friedrich Nietzsche once suggested that hardship breeds brilliance, and maybe Glasgow's tumultuous history in part explains why it's produced so many brilliant people. So, I'm in my flat here in Denniston, Glasgow, where I live with my girlfriend Ella and have done for 5 years.
Hey guys!
Lived in Glasgow for 10 years. So why are we leaving now, especially after I've just given some soliloquy about why Glasgow's so special, memorable, why the people are so great. So, number one is, when we first moved in here, during the first month of COVID, the rent was $595 a month, okay, between two of us. So pretty cheap, very central, great in that respect. The rent is now $850, so it's gone up considerably. So is all the, gas bills, electricity bills, that kind of stuff. So is general life in Glasgow. During COVID as well, there were a bunch of kind of closures, restaurant closures, music venue closures. And I personally feel a lot less attached to the city, a lot less excited by it. When I first moved down when I was 18 from Inverness, I was like in awe, maybe because I was like a young idiot and loved boozing and drinking. And maybe I'm more of an adult now. But anyway, we've done a bit of travelling. I say travelling, we've gone on holidays, right? Try not to sound like a wanker here, but me and Ella went to South America last summer for like the month, and our eyes were really open to how cheap it is. Of course, everyone knows it's cheap, but also just how good the quality of life is, how good the food is, how accessible all these amazing parts of the world are. Okay, if you're in Peru, flying to Colombia and Argentina is really easy. Going to the States is easy. It's got to a point now where we've both got kind of stable jobs here in Glasgow and incomes, but it's not really translating to this like great quality of life. And basically our lives are spent looking forward to the couple of weeks we're going to be away in a few months, and our aim is to try and not make that our lives where we're just sort of wishing time away and try and enjoy life in the moment. I'm trying not to sound like a wanker here, but something about a camera just makes it come out of you. But we're going to basically try and live on this holiday full time. So I mentioned kind of us both having stable careers, me and Ella. Ella has a stable career, a well-paying job with the health service, right? She's a speech therapist. I'm a PhD student. I also teach at the university and do research internships when I can. Now my hours are pretty erratic and unpredictable, whereas Ella has this really kind of stable career, well-paid, constant pay rises. So I'm not giving up much. I can do my PhD on the road. I can still mark essays whilst we're traveling. Ella's kind of giving up the stable career. Another thing that we're doing to sort of guarantee income whilst we're traveling or whilst we're on our permanent holiday is teaching English online, right? So we've both done TEFL courses. I think we paid a couple £100 each to do these TEFL courses. I've been teaching English online, very limited hours for the past couple of months. Ella's about to start doing so. And the idea is that once we move away in May, we'll be doing this kind of almost full-time, but not really full-time. Okay, so the money isn't brilliant. We're going to be earning more right now, obviously, with our kind of proper jobs, if you want to call them that. However, we're going to be living within certain economies where the teaching English money is going to go a lot further than our proper salaries do here in Scotland, and that's the idea. We're going to go to Spain for 3 months to use up our allotted time that we're allowed in Europe without a visa. We're very lucky in that my parents, before I was born, bought a small village house in Andalusia in the south of Spain. It's very basic, but we're able to stay there for 3 months while we sort of get our hours set up for our online teaching. And then we've booked flights to Ecuador, to Peru, and in all these countries in South America you can stay for between 3 and 6 months without a visa. So we're going to be doing 2 months in Ecuador, 3 months in Peru, 2 months in Colombia probably. We're just using Airbnb and Booking.com to book places, maybe a little bit more expensive than obviously renting locally. But I'll put some images on the screen. In Lima, for example, you can get like a really like a penthouse apartment with a pool and a gym in the building, washing machine, electricity, Wi-Fi and everything for less than £500. I think we've gone for one about £550, but you can go under £300 if you really want to, if you don't mind a smaller place. We kind of want 2 separate rooms so we can do our teaching. The point is, in South America, these kind of rental prices that you can book with like loads of convenience, guaranteed Wi-Fi, heating without having to pay for it, are very cheap, and more than half the rent that we're paying for this, what is essentially a box in Glasgow. How many days left of work? You meant to know this off the top of your head.
I know, well, you should have warned me. 14.
How many full weeks?
1. And then 3 short weeks.
How many squat days?
3, I think. Oh no, 2. 2.
2 squat days. Salut. Yes, brother. How many days left of work?
Zilch.
Zilch. And so after a flight from Glasgow to Malaga, a bus to Estepona, and a short taxi ride, we arrived in Casares, a breathtaking white village in southern Spain with a name derived from the Arabic Alcacer, meaning fortress. Perched dramatically on a hillside in Malaga province, Casares is one of Andalusia's most picturesque pueblos blancos. While its sulphur baths were once visited by Julius Caesar, Casares, as it stands today, was much to Moorish influence. The village's narrow winding streets, terraced homes and strategic hilltop layout reflect Islamic design principles. A 13th century castle crowns the village, once guarding the frontier of the Nasrid kingdom. Casares is also the birthplace of Blas Infante, widely regarded as the father of Andalusian nationalism. From the castle walls, you can look out to Gibraltar and even catch a glimpse of Morocco on a clear day. Hola. Right, salute me then, fucker.
So although Casares sits in the Sierra Cristina mountain range, it is still in close proximity to the Costa del Sol. In less than 20 minutes, you can go from jagged mountain ranges to the refreshing Mediterranean Sea. While this is useful for us pasty Scots on hot days, it also shapes the eating culture here in the village. There's places like Mi Cortillo, which sits at the top of Casares, which serve fresh seafood. Where there's rustic tavernas like Bar El Castillo, which serve local meats and vegetables.
¿Qué tal la cena?
Muy rico.
When we arrived in Casares, we thought it would just be rude not to tuck in. We also walked out to a new restaurant called Andalusia, which sits at the Andalusia viewpoint, where we got some patatas bravas.
What's your verdict?
Muy bien, muy rico.
A little further out is the most reasonably priced bar in the region, called Bar Campo del Football. So as people who used to overindulge in food and then started eating very healthily, the food options in the village are likely to be very problematic for us.
So yes, if you want to watch us try not to get obese or fail miserably at hiking, keep working on the Spanish, then stick around I guess. We'll be in Cadiz next. Cadiz also in Andalusia. Adiós. ¿Dónde vamos?